And what I realized is that there is absolutely no difference between being out in the bush by yourself or being here in society, because one way or another, as a consciousness, as a mind, I'm still absolutely isolated. I'm still the only one in my mind. And when interacting with other people, one of the easiest things to get sucked into is to believe that they're other people. And they're not. They're all reflections of the self, not the ego self, but the self, the consciousness, the awareness of what is. And so on one level or another, this is all happening within my mind. This is all happening within my consciousness. Again, the belief in the physical world outside the mind is just a perception. So now it's getting to the point where I wander around, I talk to people, and I experience things, and I know that it's all happening within the mind, so it's becoming much more symbolic and much more meaningful, and I'm still remaining in isolation as a consciousness because I'm the only consciousness I truly know. And so that in itself is a state of meditation, and it's the perception of isolation which is leading to more and more lessons, which is why I believe Jesus came out of the desert to begin with, because, well, Krishnamurti said it best. You see the face of what is in your relationships. Running off into the mountains and running off into a monastery is great, and it's a wonderful, peaceful way of living. But it's not necessarily the best way of living, because you're isolating yourself from the perceptions you don't want to see or deal with. And if we're truly going to face those perceptions, if we're truly going to understand those perceptions and get past our judgments of those perceptions, we have to look at them literally straight in the face. And the way to do that is to interact with the physical manifestations of them, which is, of course, our day-to-day lives. No matter what we're doing or experiencing, we're always doing it within our mind. We're always in a state of isolation because no matter what I do, I am still the only mind that I'm aware of, and I am absolutely free in that mind to perceive anything as I choose. I'm still very much alone in that way. And the ego has very little to do with that, because as I realize that everybody is really just a perception that I'm experiencing in my mind, well, then I realize that my mind has nothing to do with this character, and I have to let go of the ego. And I think one of the biggest things that I've had to deal with so far is the belief that there is an ego to begin with. And there isn't. There is no ego self. There is no idea of who we are. We believe there is. That's another perception, and it's a choice. But what I have to admit is that no matter if I believe I'm acting based on my ego or not, I'm still going to say what I need to say. I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do and interact with the other perceptions of myself the way I'm supposed to interact with them, because we're all very much tied together in that way. Just as, I run across, say, a lesson that I've been thinking about for quite a long time, or thinking I need to deal with, and then boom, it pops up. Well, that character who brings the lesson into my life had to go through a certain amount of things to bring them there at exactly that point. And so they're playing into my story as much as I'm playing into their story. And so we're all interacting at perfect intervals and perfect times, almost as if our stories are perfectly written. And they are, as much as we have free choice. And so really destiny and free will are kind of happening at the same time. And so really, less and less I'm thinking that I need the ego self to interact with the reality around me, because I am going to, once again, play my role perfectly whether I believe in the ego or not. And in believing I'm acting in the ego self, I'm just casting judgment on myself again, and that's not helping me at all. And so it really comes down to, no matter what I do, the ego self is just a mask. It's another escape from being ultimately responsible. And more importantly, it's a choice to stay within the belief that I'm interacting in duality. Duality are perceptions of what is, and no matter what I'm doing, it can be perceived in one way or the other, or I can choose to perceive it in neither way. And just know that I am unity. I am that isolated sense of self, that absolute everything that is nothing, and the core awareness of everything, because it's all within my mind. So I'm walking around in a constant state of meditation. And it's kind of like you were saying about Christ. Christ managed to let go of the character while still interacting as a character. But what it is he realized there was no difference between God and the character. It's just all a matter of perception. We all think that we're mortal and within a body, but that doesn't really mean anything. It's just another tool for interacting with our own mind. There is no body, there is no mind, there is no inner and outer. There just is this consciousness that is my own, right?